The date is July 2nd. I didn't post a podcast last week, and it wasn't any reason particular. Actually, it was a reason particular. I don't even know what I'm saying right now. I was supposed to do like some type of game show, and I was gonna find people that wanted to kind of like have a fun night, and just it was supposed to be like some type of drinking game. I wanted to do it every 10 episodes or so. I'm still gonna do it, but like last week felt really dark, and I don't think anybody wanted to. I don't think anybody wanted to play a game. I don't know if it's just the whatever's going on right now. But I was like, oh, okay, nobody wants to do this right now, so we'll probably skip it. So I just waited for my next guest that I scheduled to be on. We kind of talk about, he was supposed to be on that week, I believe, something like that. We rescheduled. Long story short, I converted to vegetarianism. I believe that's how you say it, and I decided one night to just get a McFlurry. This was like 2 weeks into it, and I was doing it pretty consistently. I was eating very good, just home cooked meals, and nothing too crazy. I think I went and bought vegan food one night, takeout, I might add, due to the given circumstances, and I just decided, like, on a whim, I was like, okay, let's try it. Let's get back into ice cream. And it just completely obliterated my stomach. I woke up in the morning destroyed, and it was supposed to be an early morning. It's early in my time. He's on the East Coast, so I just I scheduled it early, so I had to wake up at like 9, which is early for me, but I just couldn't do it. And happily, I will say, or luckily is the correct term, he was very empathetic to the situation. And we rescheduled, and we actually had a really good interview, which is today. And before like I even get into this whole interview, I did want to talk about my week, because this week was huge for Terrance. Huge week. So last year I changed my whole mindset. I was going through a very tough time, and I kind of, like, I'm going to be honest, I just ghosted everybody I knew. And I mean, like, friends, family. I guess family, yeah. I mean, I see them all the time. That doesn't really count. But, I mean, like, mostly friends. I mean, I, like, left my job. I got a new job, but regardless. And then there was somebody I was kind of seeing that I kind of ghosted. And then, actually, I'm gonna just throw away the word kinda. I did ghost. And this is a fault of mine, and I'm gonna be honest, it's by far probably one of the worst ways or things you could do to a person. And I understand that now, but at the time I had a lot going on, and I didn't really know how to communicate and express what I'm feeling to people. So I thought, I guess in that sense, back then, that was probably the best way I could have ended things, and that is not the way to do it. I've learned this year. I mean, sadly, I know it's this year, but I'm glad I did learn, is that you do have to communicate. I feel like this would have been much more amicable. Is that a word? It would have been much more, I think, pleasant. It would have been a hard reality to face it up front, but it would have been way better for the person, and I understand that now. And this week, I actually got to talk to them, and it was cool because she thankfully allowed me to express what I felt. And I also got to learn what she felt, and it was tough. I mean, I think everything's tough. It's really hard to do stuff like that. I mean, it's one of those things where you kind of know it's a terrible thing, and you kind of just put it in the back of your head, and you're like, okay, I mean, I know I did that shitty thing, but I mean, it felt really good to talk to the person. I mean, I feel like such an asshole. I mean, from a perspective of hindsight, I feel like it would have been much easier to just say, hey, I'm going through some stuff right now. Is it okay if we put this off? I think that would have just solved about every single problem in my whole dictionary of problems. There's a dictionary, I guess, encyclopedia of problems. I mean, now's not the time for jokes, but that was pretty funny. But, yeah, I mean, I felt like it would have just been easier to say that. But for whatever reason, I thought, okay, abandon everything. Just leave. Like, if I was a captain of some type of pirate ship, the captain never leaves the ship. You got to go down with the ship, whether it's good or bad. And I left the ship. I went on the first rowboat out. Actually, I didn't even tell the crew. I knew, actually, if we're putting this in a scenario, what I did was the night before, learned, hey, somebody's going to blow your ship up. And I was like, okay, yes. And then I kept that information. And then at night, while everyone was sleeping, I got the rowboat. And then I released all the other rowboats. And then I took them all and I put all the supplies on them. And I left. And I can imagine how that crew felt. So, I mean, I don't even know where I'm going with this. Regardless, it was really good to talk to her. It makes me feel better because I can grow. It's just another thing off. There's still some people from that time frame that I still have to kind of talk to and kind of explain what was going on. And it feels good. I mean, I do feel better. This is a good instance of feeling better, which is the podcast name. And I decided to share that with you for whatever reason it may be. But I think that's the only thing that happened this week, on top of me watching every single Harry Potter on HBO Max. We'll segue into that just because I don't really know how to end that last conversation. But if I had to choose my favorite Harry Potter film, it's definitely number 1 or 2. It's a tie between the two of them, and it's because both of them look like a BBC morning show. I love how it's filmed. I love how we go through every holiday, which I think is so funny in every Harry Potter film. Why do we have to go through the seasons? I mean, it's a full school year. I guess you're trying to get the whole year encapsulated. And then Draco Malfoy. I think my fallacy in that film would have been I would have definitely been friends with Draco Malfoy. If we're talking high school Terrance was looking for anybody to accept him. And if Draco was the coolest person in town, I'd been like, okay, that's who I'd like to associate with. And then I would have been a terrible person. I think I took the Harry Potter test, and I am Slytherin, so I would have hung out with him. No, I don't even think he'd want to hang out with me. Too much. He'd probably hang out with me for like a week, and then we'd never talk to each other. We'd just like walk by, maybe an occasional head nod. And then when I work at Starbucks 8 years later, he comes in, and then we kind of chit chat. He's like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm like, "Yup, working," and that'd be our relationship. I'm imagining now being a wizard and working at Starbucks. That's probably the worst life. Would you use spells? How would this work in the Harry Potter world? Okay, regardless, I'm going to end this conversation. Thank you. This has been a week for me. But regardless, this episode, I interviewed the one and only Joe Ledoux. So I got in touch with him through another guest, which was great. And I could not have loved our conversation more. We kind of got a little philosophical, and he's a magical artist, as he likes to be called, which I loved because I love to learn what I like learning what other people like to call themselves. I like to respect their art form, respect what they do. But he does magic, which is cool, and then he also does art, and he kind of encapsulates the word artist, I guess I should say. And we had a really good interview, and it was really great. We kind of talk about my troubles with the McFlurry. We talk about, I think, skateboarding a little bit, maybe, possibly. Yeah, we do. And then overall, it was just a good interview. So I hope you enjoy. We'll just segue into that. And other than that, I mean, oh, Jesus, I totally forgot. If you want to send me a story, I'm trying to see if I'm trying to get more interaction with my email. So if you would like to maybe be on the podcast, maybe talk about something cool in your life, maybe send me a story you want me to talk about or discuss. I can discuss anything on here. I have an email, and it is IWTFB podcast, like the word podcast, at gmail.com. And I'll say it again. IWTFB, it's I want to feel better, but just the acronym, podcast at gmail.com. And actually, we'll do a contest. If the first person to send me a joke, we'll do this. First person to send me a joke and their address will get a disposable camera and a sticker pack for me. There we go. I said it on here. This is how I know people will listen. So I'll say it one more time. IWTFB podcast at gmail.com. Okay, perfect. I've talked long enough, so now let's go talk from another day. We'll talk to the one and only magical artist, Joe Ledoux. All right, let me play a segue song so you guys can go to that interview. Thank you.
There we go. I was on mute. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
Pretty good.
Oh, I want to thank you, by the way, for rescheduling. I had quite the predicament on Tuesday. Yeah, so I recently converted to being a vegetarian. And so I was doing it for about a week or so.
Okay.
And I would say, I don't know, I just had a late night impulse to purchase a McDonald's McFlurry. And that completely obliterated my digestive system. So
Oh man.
apologies for that.
Oh, no worries. Completely get being human. Awesome.
But no, I want to thank you so much for doing this. I saw your profile and I instantly was like, I gravitated towards it, and the fact of like seeing that you are an artist as well as like a magician, which is someone I've never met before. And then a skateboarder as well. So I thought this would be a perfect little interview to do.
Yeah. Are we live or are we recording or?
Yeah, we're recording, but it is an audio podcast, so you are totally fine to say whatever, and then just
Okay.
let me know. Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty laid back. I have a coffee here and, just this is the first time I've ever done a like video interview like this over the computer. So,
Okay.
I believe in pushing comfort zones. So,
Mm-hmm.
at first I was kind of like, oh, maybe we should just, do it over the phone. But the way that I'm trained is just to always learn and push your comfort zone. So thank you so much for having me on the show. And
Yeah, of
I'm just
course.
really happy to be here and to learn, especially during these times with quarantine. I feel like everyone's learning more tech skills and how to gravitate on the
Mm-hmm.
internet. But as being a magician, one of my favorite quotes that my magic teacher told me is, a really good magician doesn't say like, I'm a magician. He says, I'm a magician and you are too. And we say in magic is done with mirrors, but we're the mirror. And we're
Okay.
just reminding everyone that they're a magician in their own lives and that we all have the power to transform and make our dreams and goals a reality, which is a magician, an act of magic in itself.
Oh, okay. That's a great way to put it. No, that's awesome. And I did want to ask because I've always been curious because it's not like I'm opposed to magic. I've never explored that realm. And I've always wondered like what intrigued you about magic that got you into it?
Probably from being an outsider. I mean, my
Mm-hmm.
life as a child, I was really shy and, I didn't go to my prom. I went skateboarding.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I gravitated when I found out I could eat in the art room because I hated going to lunch as a child and, even in high school as a kid, I hated the lunchroom. And someone told me, they're like, hey, you can eat in the art room. So I started to really gravitate towards the arts because they gave me a sense of belonging and a way to deal with, having a lonely life as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different aspects of magic. I think the first time where I fell in love with it, because I had done it as a child I had done shows and things, but there was something always missing where whenever I would take a coin and make it disappear, if someone asked me to see a magic trick,
Mm-hmm.
once it vanished, I just felt like something was missing and that I was somehow giving the audience a bad gift, just a puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
And the light bulb went off when I realized that magic could be a metaphor and that you could catch a coin out of the air and then shine a little light from the sun or from the room off the coin and tell the person, here's a little light to brighten your day. And
Mm-hmm.
when I discovered that magic could be a metaphor and that it could be a gift that you could brighten people's days with and use it as a metaphor, that's where I found out that it was a real art. And that's when I like the light bulb went off where I was like, I can do this my whole life.
Oh, that's awesome. So you do see it as like a creative expression, right? So like, I mean, and now that you kind of worded it, I kind of do see it as a creative outlet almost. I mean, it allows you to be creative with the guise of illusion, you know, and it's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's my whole mantra is magic is an art.
Hmm.
Even Alan Moore, who did, he's done a bunch of comics like Watchmen. I'm sure you know Alan Moore.
I literally just finished the episodic series. Yeah, it was great.
He has all these talks on how magic is art and,
Hmm.
you know, an idea from nothing, a rabbit out of the hat. And I think he's right. I think it's interchangeable. And I don't see any difference in magic than in any other art form of creative expression. I know Max Maven says one of the things that magic has in it that you don't see in other art forms is mystery. There's this
Hmm.
real push on mystery, and you don't see that as much, you know, in dance or in comedy, but you could add mystery to those art forms. And that's what I find really interesting is when you put the mystery back in the art forms that are ignoring it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And it's just it's cool to see. And I wanted to ask too, what was your upbringing like? So like what where were you born if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, so Framingham, Massachusetts.
Okay.
I grew up, well, till 8 years old in Marlborough, and then I moved to Hubbardston, which is close to Mount Wachusett over in that neck of the woods. There's a big mountain in my backyard.
That's cool. Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. And then would you say your environment affected your creative output, like your endeavors and everything? Was it a big inspiration?
That's a really good question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that, and it totally does. A lot of illusionists, like big people that do big illusion shows, grow up on farms
Yeah.
because they have so much space outside to like get, you know, giant boxes and play in the lawn.
Yeah.
You know, like New York magicians in these tight little spaces end up being really good close-up magicians.
Hmm.
So I had a giant backyard, and I would go in my backyard and throw playing cards. I got really good at throwing cards around like really high.
Yeah.
And bats used to appear. Like when I would throw a card, a bat would think it was an insect, and a bat would just fly out of nowhere and like grab the playing card. That's an amazing trick in itself. Like, do you want to
Yeah.
see a bat appear? Throw it from a deck of cards. And you know, my dad would bring me for walks into the woods and show me really cool, what I would consider magic tricks, where he would take a little piece of a twig and say, you know, see that stream, and he would throw a twig into the water, and a fish would bite the twig thinking it was a fly, and then he would be like, you know, come over here, and he'd lift a log, and there would be like, you know, a salamander under it, and there was this real sense of wonder and magic in nature where I grew up, which I think
Yeah.
really, I'm even creating magic tricks around some of these things that I'm telling you.
Hmm. Okay.
One of them with a bird's nest where, you know, I remember crawling into trees and then looking in nests and seeing eggs appear. So I'm working on a trick with a nest where I tell the story of our childhood and seeing the first eggs in a nest. And as the nest is lowered into their vision, you know, there's nothing in it. And then after a few takes, the eggs appear, and you know, I'm working on the script, and it's just something that I remember being very magic from my environment that's literally manifesting into my work.
Oh, that's awesome. And because I always like to ask about like a creative's environment, because I
Yeah.
always feel like that's just the biggest creator. It's the biggest incubator for whatever they do. And I mean, it builds a whole, like, it just builds, I want to say, an identity per se, you know? And,
Yeah. I
and
mean,
it's just,
absolutely.
do you think like the East Coast itself kind of inspired you magic wise? Like, is there a difference between the East Coast and the West Coast per se in like the magic scene?
I lived in LA for a couple of years.
Okay.
So not long enough to really know a place. But I just created a chapbook, which is all about skateboarding in different locations, you know, in LA and here, and sort of what those different geographies felt like. So
Hmm.
there's totally a difference. I mean, I felt like the moment I went to the West Coast, I just got slapped in the face. It was
Yeah.
just like I was envisioning palm trees and just, this sort of like false vision of this paradise. And those places do exist there, but I
Mm.
envision it to be more like everywhere like that. I didn't realize that, it was very, a lot of sand, a lot of concrete,
Hmm.
um, just the very nature of going over there. And I loved it. I mean, I felt like LA was one of the most creative places I've ever been. And the
Hmm.
people that I would meet, that's where I met my magic teacher at the Magic Castle there. I mean,
Oh,
I don't
that's
really know how to
awesome.
put it into words on, without stereotyping or seeming like an asshole. They're not really things I want to say about where, places where I live. I mean, we can focus on the good,
Yeah.
and because there's so many things that I don't like about where I live and that I like.
Hmm.
But yeah, I forget your original question. Just the differences of the two
Yeah,
spaces.
it was just like I just wanted to ask, like in general, did you notice like in terms of like magic, was there like a genuine difference between the two areas?
I think that the Vegas is the magic landing place, and there's more light per square inch there than anywhere else in the world. And
Hmm.
where there's light, there's magic, and it's a location where people need magic. So the people that are going through hard times in their lives and they're on vacation there, the magicians sort of provide a little relief in an entertainment sense. I
Hmm.
don't know where the artistic magicians tend to grow up. I mean, I would guess New York City, um,
Hmm.
places that are really vibrant. I've never really studied that. It's a good question. Where
Yeah.
are the areas that brew different types of magic? I do believe that you're right, that the environment and the location has a lot to do with how you develop.
Hmm. Yeah,
I
no,
just don't know the answer.
okay, perfect. That's okay. No, and then you said you worked at, are you, did you like study at the Magic Castle?
No, I was the guest. My magic teacher invited me there, and I was his guest. And his name is Jeff McBride, and I met him there, and then he became my teacher. So I just went in
Okay.
there one day just to see him perform, and then we became friends.
Okay. And then how did you like it? The Magic Castle has been one of my, I'm from Southern California. That's like
Okay.
that's one of our events over here.
Have you been there?
No, no, not yet. I'm trying to go. Or
Okay.
I was planning to go before this whole thing happened.
It's really a trip. I mean, there's a little secret passage, and then there's a piano, and you call it a song, and it just starts playing like there's a ghost in the room. There's
Hmm.
a really strict dress code. That's what I
Yes.
found. I got like 10 emails. If you're not in a suit and tie, you will be kicked out upon entrance. I got
Yes.
like 5 different emails about making sure I was dressed right before I got there. Um, if I ever perform there, I'm going to be like, all right, I'm only going to do it in jeans and a t-shirt. Yeah, that's
Break the
just my
status
style.
quo. That's incredible.
I mean, what I get it, but that side of it, my magic shows, they're in like punk rock venues. There are people sitting on the floor in art galleries.
Yeah.
And I tell the audience I'm not an actor, and
Hmm.
I tell them, a lot of magicians are trying to blow them away, but I'm trying to connect from the heart and pull them in. And I'm just going to be real and in the moment, like I am with you right now, drinking this
Hmm.
coffee, talking. Um, and I'm just being myself. So I'm trying not to be an actor. And
Yeah.
everything that I do is real. So I don't use strings to levitate things. I invented this trick where you blow with your breath on a feather in your hand, and it makes the
Hmm.
feather float.
Okay.
So that it's just science levitating the feather, but there's no string, it's really floating.
Yeah.
And people will say, that's not really magic, but to me, if I can accomplish the real thing using my body to make something levitate, Harry Potter, the first thing he learns to levitate is a feather.
Hmm.
um, the magic is real. So I will do some sleight of hand and things to, because it's a very pure form of magic, but I'm not the kind of magician that's I'm just clarifying, because thinking about different spaces and different types of performances,
Yeah.
my style is very much in the more artistic spirit.
Okay. No, that's awesome. And I kind of felt that with your profile. I was looking over it before. And you really express yourself almost in all varieties, it seems.
Yeah, the paintings of my animated character are usually up in the galleries that I perform in,
Oh, okay.
and he's just a little character that I draw how I'm feeling a certain day, and the way a brush or a painting, or sorry, a paintbrush moves, it's like a magic wand creating something on paper. So that's a real act of real magic. I mean, you're moving a wand and something's appearing.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean that's exactly how I feel about it. I'm pretty late to the game, but I found creative expression to be my outlet. I'd say if not a year ago, I learned it was such a beautiful thing to just express yourself. And I mean, I've always been creative my whole life, but up until recently, I just realized I was like, oh, you could kind of make a kind of job out of this. Oh, you could kind of do this, you know? So that's what I've been doing, which has been great.
That's awesome. Congrats. I mean,
Thank you.
to realize you can make it a lifestyle and fully commit like that, I think is everything.
Yeah. And then do you find yourself just committing to, would you call being a magician a lifestyle? Or is there also another word besides magician that you would like to call yourself?
I use the word magical artist.
Okay,
eh,
perfect.
And if I'm laughing when you're asking questions, it's usually because I really, really like and understand the question. We laugh for three different reasons. One, well, there's sort of like it's all about understanding. So
Hmm.
when you see a piece of art and you really, really understand it, you're like, it's the moment. And then when
Hmm.
scientists like gets it, it's like, aha. And then when you get a joke, it's ha ha. So, when someone asks me a question like, why are you laughing? It's like, first of all, I get where you're going with the question, or I understand the philosophy behind the question and I really like it. So when I'm laughing at the questions you're asking, I'm not mocking them.
Oh,
It's
don't even
literally,
stress. It's okay. Don't even worry.
I just
It's
want to
not a
clarify,
problem
because
with
if
me.
someone's listening to this, they're, like, some people are like, why are you laughing at that? And,
Yeah.
they're just really, really good questions. So good that I forgot the question.
No worries. I've definitely learned with the podcast that the perception of what I'm saying definitely does not match what I actually meant. So like, so it's a good note that you put that in there, not for us per se, but for people listening. But oh
Yeah.
yeah, I did want to. So do you prefer magical artists? I believe that's what we were talking about.
Yeah. Good memory. It is, the term I'm the most satisfied with right now.
Hmm.
I was calling myself a performance artist, but I think that people just think of you like dumping paint on yourself, paint all over yourself or something. And that's cool. Like, I'm not mocking that
Yeah.
style. Maybe I'll do that one day, but I really
Hmm.
like magical artists because, and sometimes when people ask me what I do, I'll just say I'm an artist, and then they'll say, "Oh, what do you paint with, or what kind of art?" And then I tell them magic, and I just love seeing their face and how they try and what do so magical artists, people kind of, I think, get it. They're like, "Oh, so you do art with magic," or it's a good lead in, and I like that for branding.
Okay.
That's the best term I can think of to describe what I do. And I didn't come up with it. There are other magicians that were pursuing magic as art. You don't hear about them so much. But
Hmm.
Sam Sharp used to call himself a magical artist, and he made the Mask of Wonder. He created it. Einstein said the most beautiful emotion we can experience is mystery.
Hmm.
And in comedy, in theater, they have the two masks, the one of tragedy and the one that's like happy and comedy. And, it's the happy, sad masks right next to each other. And he thought that those polar opposites, there is an in between. And if you even take a frown and a smile and put them together, you get this oval shaped wonder trout face look. And he invented the Mask of Wonder, and he's like, that should be in theater. And people should add that mystery that magicians bring to the stage in theater. And I thought that was so cool. I mean, to see
Yeah.
this artist talk about magic and invent another mask for actors. That's what magicians do. We fill in the gaps and the voids.
No, that's just it's crazy to just see this perspective about it because I've never I guess I'll bash my own ignorance on the sense of magicians. I mean, it doesn't seem like anything. Not like, and I'm not even saying that in an offensive way, but it's one of those industries where if you don't learn about it, you don't know anything about it, you know?
Like puppetry, right? Like if I tell someone
Exactly.
I'm a
Yeah.
puppeteer, they're like, "Oh, you must be great for kids' birthday parties." And then, if they're like, Jim Henson is the only thing they've seen. And I mean, even he took it to an artistic level, but there's got to be puppeteers that have adult language and tell poems about their life and go to puppet slams. And, they're a puppeteer doing it for grown-ups, and no, they're going to have to try and win or fight every inch of the way to try and convince people that it's an art. And I believe magic is like that, and that's really what one of my goals is in life, is to make people see magic as an art form.
Yeah. And it's great that you described it to me because now I can see it as an art form. I mean, I would put it right next to just everything else. I mean, I just needed the clarification, if anything.
And it's really the intention of the artist. It's what the artist brings to it. So I think Rodney Mullen, when he talked about skateboarding, said
Mm,
something like, skateboarding is as much an art as it is a sport, but one thing that it cannot be is only a sport. And that's really it. I mean, everything is an
exactly.
entertainment and a sport, but one thing they can't be is only that. And it's I mean, a baseball player doesn't have that option, but when they retire or behind the scenes, they can, until 99, be trying to balance a ball on the end of a bat and be pursuing that passion as an art form behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And it's just, it's interesting in the sense of, I mean, from an artistic, what is your, I mean, this is an extremely loaded question. I'm sorry.
Yes, yes.
Like, what is your artistic goal with magic? I mean, what would you like to do with magic?
Yeah. um, I mean, if you don't have a roadmap, you'll never get there. So i really
Exactly.
i really think about these things. I already said that I would like people to see magic as an art form. So the more I can spread that word and perform in that way, you're then
Hmm.
helping future magicians that want to walk that path. It makes it easier for them. So there is that sense of giving back to the community, where you separate yourself and walk your own journey, but then open doors for others. So there is part of that I want to give back and make magic respected as an art form. Um, there's a lot of more personal goals. Let me think about this.
Hmm.
I mean, I think entertainers give people what they want, and an artist gives people what they need.
Yeah.
So, as a artist, you're always looking at different people in your life and thinking, what do they need? How can I make their life better? And in a non-egotistical sense, you might just
Hmm.
see somebody who is, let's just say you're at your day job and they're very, very shy, and they're sitting with their hands folded, and, it's their third day and they need to the ice broken, so to,
Hmm.
create, to catch something out of the air at that point, like a little 4-leaf clover. And I have real 4-leaf clovers, and to
Yeah.
give that 4-leaf clover to that individual. I mean, the arms are going to come unfolded as they go to grab the 4-leaf clover, and I'm giving them what they need to loosen up.
Yeah.
Um, so a big goal is the whole world's a stage. It's that day to day experience where who you're being in the moment as a person,
Hmm.
of trying to make everyone's life better, is one of my goals.
Okay. That's a really good goal. I mean, if I do say so myself.
Especially with that awkward pause in the beginning where, okay, shit, what's that silence? This is uncomfortable. What's this guy going to say?
Oh, not
But that's
even.
where you get the real answers from, because a lot of people
Yeah.
just chunk and they have a script. And when
Yeah.
someone asks them a question, they're going to go to that same script. If you listen to any interviews written I've done, everything I say is different, because I'm really going to think about what someone's asking me. And I
Hmm.
want to, and then when you go to the heart like that, there's that awkward moment, but then you get to the heart of it. So that's how it works for me.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm learning that as I'm going with this whole podcast thing. It's just you have to be honest, because like you said, there is a natural response. I feel like almost like a defense mechanism, like almost like a indoor PR person in your head trying to
Yeah.
save face. But I mean, the more natural it is, I feel like people like it more, and people like learning your intentions and everything that you want to do. You know.
Yep. And you know, some really good showmen, they they'll chunk, and I'll do it too. You know, if there's a really cool little phrase that someone's asking the same question over and over, and you know, you want to entertain them. I mean, there's going to be things that if you're not answering it the same way, then you're you're not
Mhm.
really telling the truth. I mean, because
Exactly.
it sounds like, you know, how did you get into magic? And you're like, okay, well, this guy gave me this book, and then someone else asks you, how did you get into magic? And then you're like, oh, this different person gave me, you know, this book. You know, okay, well, why? What are, you know? Hopefully, someone's being honest first of all.
Yeah.
But then, you know, so it makes sense that someone will have the same polished story. But when you get questions that you've never been asked before, I find those so fun because you have to go to
Hmm.
your heart in those moments.
You have to think, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I did want to ask too. This is just completely off topic, but I'm sorry. But with crowds, I want to know, what is your personal, and you don't have to give too much information, but like, what is your personal route to gain the audience's approval? And it's not necessarily that you have to gain their approval, but I understand that there's a lot of doubters when it comes to magic. There's a lot of people that like to, I mean, hecklers in comedy. I feel like there's always that person in every single artistic form. And I
Yeah.
wanted to know how you deal with that.
Well, first of all, you go through hell. I have
Yeah.
been through hell. I have been heckled. I have been destroyed. I mean, there's a whole part of the career that you can talk about, but then there's a point where you start asking yourself, how do I make sure this never happens to me again?
Hmm.
And for me, the solutions that I believe that the question is bringing up, the solutions for me were okay, well, now I'm only doing shows where people are coming to see me. So I can't
Hmm.
be hired. Nobody can be like, hey, I want to hire you for a gig unless they're booking me by my name. So like if a company knew me
Hmm.
and they're like, we want Joe Ledoux to come to Apple,
Hmm.
you know, but I can't be booked as a magician because if you're booked by your name, people know they're getting your personality and they're getting you. So
Okay.
so at my magic shows now, the only people that show up to them are people that already like me.
Hmm.
Um, you know, and I'm going to be doing open studios through Zoom. So during my open studios, the only people watching are going to be people I've sent the link to that wanted to show up to see my living room magic shows in my art studio.
Yeah.
Um, so part of it, I think, is figuring out what audience you want. And for me, I decided that I didn't want to brand myself as a magician. I wanted to be my own brand. And then I think that gives you a lot of freedom as a performer to not have, I mean, your friends can heckle you, but then it's fun. I mean, I'm still,
Exactly.
I mean,
That's what they're
your
there
friends
for.
slap a coin out of you know, he's palming it and smack your hand and all the cards fall or whatever. You just laugh and everyone's laughing. I mean, you move on to something else or you get in a fight with him as part of the show. I mean, you know, it's like you have to just find a way where every part of the process is fun. I mean, I remember doing one show in a living room and someone brought a baby and the baby just started crying. So I was folding, actually at that moment I was catching coins out of the air. So I went and started catching all of the coins out of the crying baby because I knew the focus was going to be on this crying baby. The parent wasn't leaving. So the baby is the star and I'm just catching coins and pulling them out from the baby's ears and the hair and dropping them into this pail, and the baby stops crying. I go on to the next show, and then I'm getting to this point where I'm folding this origami crane and the baby starts crying, so I fly the paper crane towards the baby, and then the little baby just looks and it just goes, I swear this is true, it goes, birdie, and then holds the little bird, stops crying. Then I'm getting to the end of the show and the baby is starting to cry again. And there's this big burst of paper butterflies that fill the room and the
Hmm.
baby just stops crying. So like my solution was like, make the baby the star of the show and all the magic is happening to the crying baby.
Hmm.
Go back to the show when the baby stops crying. If the baby starts crying, go back to the baby and then try and get to the end. And it worked. And I was able to to get through a show with a crying baby. But that was just experience. You know, and then at the other my last show, I came on to emo music, and I was a skateboarder. I think there's two sides of emo. You know, there's the goth kind of like black eyeliner, but then there's a whole Weezer sweater side that was like, you know, ties, like wearing something you got out of church and jumped on a skateboard. A very punk side of it, you know, with bands like you know, Weezer, The Rentals, Ozma, that whole kind of underground scene.
Yeah.
And I'm not mocking the other styles, but that was a huge part of my life growing up, was having music like that and going skate and being skateboarding out in different parking lots alone or in my basement.
Yeah.
I had two half pipes in my basement, and I would just go down there with Weezer playing. So I love just I had like a CD player on my shoulder, and it was I think Joyce Manor playing, and I just walked out on stage, awkward as heck. And people said, you looked really nervous, and I hadn't performed in a while. And it was so fun to just try and be an awkward, nervous magician in those moments. I feel like a lot of it is this idea on the performer that they have to be something. Like, I have to be confident. I can't be vulnerable. I have to be, and once you realize that, like, if you do a horrible show, you don't die after, and you can just get back on a stage. I've always played with that level of being uncomfortable on my own end, like where there wasn't a grand finale in my show and the show was just over. I mean, I've done stuff like that because I'm like, I've never seen shows like that, and the audience feels like there should be something more. But if emotionally it felt right to end without having a big, like, ta-da, I've done things like that. And it's fun because you just get more in the moment and don't really care so much about pleasing the audience. As long as you're pleased emotionally, it's for the people that connect with you. Like, if you're drumming your own heartbeat, it's the people that want to drum with you. If everyone else in the room is like, if there's 3 people that are like, we want to drum with you, it's like, come to the next show. Everyone else, go to a different show. And then you just start to sing for the people that listen.
And yeah, I can relate to you 100% on that. I feel like there's a certain moment where you realize, oh, I'm not going to go with other people's wavelengths. I'm just going to kind of do my own thing. And you kind of people do naturally associate with you if they like you. And it's such an interesting take in the fact of you control your whole show, which I like. I think that's really cool. And like, do you came out in that, like, that nervous kind of stage? Do you like seeing people's reactions in those aspects?
I want to be clear too. I didn't try and make people uncomfortable. I tried to be honest with how I was feeling at the moment. I've had shows where I was feeling really great and confident, and I came on that way, but something bad happens in your life. And, you know, something did happen in my life, you know, where you lose a friend, and I don't mean a death, but just like, you know, something comes up where things don't go the way you want.
Yeah. It's just a rift.
You know, like with the vegan thing that happened to you, like, you know, where you know, the story that you told me earlier, you had a day where you had a goal, it didn't fit with what you wanted, and then you had a negative experience after. Like, when you're called to stage in that moment, I think people usually, they want to put their act on it and go on emotionally, you know, acting a certain way. And I've seen musicians say on stages, I can't sing that song because, you know, if you want to hear Wonderwall or whatever the top 40 is, I've played it a million times. Or on another side note on that, I don't emotionally feel like I could sing that song now, because the artist actually really cared about what they wrote, and they can't fake it. So I think, like, coming onto the stage, I try to not act and think about, well, if I'm going to go on the stage, what's the more honest style I can go on? And since I was feeling kind of, you know, back during those high school days of listening to the emo music and sort of being on my own and things not going right, I was like, I want to go on with that style. I want to embrace that instead of try and act like it's not happening. Okay. So every show I do, the styles change, and I try and embrace how I'm feeling. I think the next show I'm going to do is going to be a skateboard demo. So the camera is going to be really low to the floor, and I'm going to have little ramps, and it's going to start with music and fingerboards. It'll probably be like a punk band, and the fingerboards will disappear, and it'll sort of be a little magic show. Then I'll take that off the floor and jump on my skateboard, and I'll start doing skateboard magic in my living room in the Zoom show. So, so it's going to come on with a more punk rock kind of playful edge than the other show.
Okay, and I wanted to ask too, like, you were saying that you like pushing into that uncomfortable, like, territory. Was it initially nerve-wracking, or have you gotten used to the uncomfortability? Because you seem to like to push yourself into these boundaries in order to grow, which I really commend, because I've been trying to do that. I've learned the more uncomfortable you are, the more you progress. And the fact of learning and humbling, it's just a very humbling experience.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're not going to push your comfort zone, you're done growing. I mean, you have to grow, put yourself into uncomfortable positions. Think about it. Like you learn how to drive a car. It's uncomfortable. You go in and sit with strangers in a room, take a driver's ed class. It could be snowing and you're out there doing your test. It's really, really a lot of anxiety. And you learn how to swim. And usually after college, people stop pushing their comfort zones. I mean, maybe a marriage is a little uncomfortable, but then after that, maybe the kids, the birth is uncomfortable. But then, then people have it depends on your life. I mean, if you have kids, it's a lot harder to focus on pushing yourself into uncomfortable situations because your responsibilities have changed. Then it's time. How do I find my time for that? If you're lucky enough to have a space of freedom where you can think about that after college, of how do I start becoming a beginner again? Because I don't think people like to be a beginner again. And
never, yeah.
I took voice classes, and that was to have someone, tell me to put a book and lay on the floor and watch my breath and then to sing out loud in a room. I was like terrified. I mean, it's really to be that beginner. And I'm always trying to be a beginner again and to start over. And even when you're drawing, to try a medium that you've never tried, to be like, okay, I've never messed with sumi ink, or I've never tried oil pastels, just to start on a canvas without having a plan. And to give yourself permission to fail, because my magic teacher says fail forward fast. And I think our mistakes, I was drawing the other day, I'm working on a Gumby comic that my girlfriend wrote. She wrote the story.
Awesome. Yeah.
Her name is Ashley Ryan, and she wrote the story, and I'm doing the drawings. It's just a piece of, I've never done any fan art my whole life that I can think of. And we just wanted to work together. And as I'm drawing this comic, every time I'm making mistakes, like I threw down a color and I was like, oh my God, that's not going to work for the helmet. Like all the other colors are not working. So I whited out the helmet and I put a lime green color on. And then I could see how other parts of it had to move forward. And I was like, it's always the mistake. Like the mistake shows you where to go. So if you're not making mistakes in life and you're not pushing your comfort zone and being a beginner, you're not going to know where to go. So you have to get lost in uncomfortable spaces to steer yourself to where you want to go, and also to learn what you don't like. Like you have to learn, things that you don't like is more important to know what you want to do. And from pushing my comfort zone and doing shows in museums because I wanted to be seen performing in art museums, I did a show at the Institute of Contemporary Art, and I was terrified. Like I'm a very shy person, and to go around with a punch in a rooms of galleries in this really contemporary art museum with people that are drinking, that are like, who's this top hat magician? Show us a trick, like David Blaine, and I'm going around with this carpet, and then they put me in the elevator. They're like, we want you to perform in the elevator. So the elevator door is opening, and I have 10 seconds to say that I'm a magician. Let me show you a trick. And then it's getting off on different floors, the people going. And then when they leave the elevator, different people, you want them to feel like they saw like an ending. So like I'm thrown into this like amazingly, one of the hardest shows I've ever done in my life. And I'm just like sweating and having a horrible time. And then I get out and I'm like, I'm never going to do that again. But I'm so happy that I did it to learn that I didn't like it, and that I'd much rather just book by my name.
I mean, we always learn those types of things. Like my own personal anecdote when I was like 18 years old, I did, or not 18, geez, sorry. This was probably like 2, 3 years ago. But
Okay.
I went to, we have a county fair. I live in San Diego, and they had a 24-hour film festival. And at the time, I really thought I liked film, and I kind of, which I kind of do, but I learned that day that it was more the artistic aspect of it I liked than anything. And it was a 24-hour film festival, and they wanted us to make a. It was basically like an advertisement, but then essentially I ended up making this crime noir film that was based on alcoholism and addiction, and it turns out they didn't like it too much. So it was such a it was such a great mistake in the fact of, I think that was one of the big pivot points for me. I was like, okay, I think I had this huge concept that was way too big for this little, like not even little, but it was just definitely a different region of film. And I kind
So
of,
was it because it was preachy? Like, did they think it was like too to be making a film about alcoholism? Or I mean, like, so I have two questions. One,
yeah, yeah, of
was
course, of
it
course.
did they think it was too preachy? And then secondly, how did you come to the realization that you wanted to pursue it and more artistically, like that you realized
Yeah.
like I don't like it in a commercial way? Or
Okay, so it was mainly, it wasn't too much about like addiction. It was just a I'll definitely send you the link if you want to see it. But
yeah.
it was a very, I think just the mood of it was 100%. It showed like somebody with pills. It was supposed to be about candy. The theme was candy. And we turned candy into like a substance abuse issue. And I think they just didn't like that. But what I
Was it meant
noticed,
to be humorous or was it meant to be serious?
in my eyes, yes. I think they didn't see it as humorous. I think it was too.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
because I'm even getting like, okay, should I laugh at this? Like, it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
100%.
There's like,
It was supposed to be it was the funniest thing I've ever made with my friends. But they, I kind of figured out that art was kind of my thing during that time, because I realized that I like the concept more than anything. Like, they gave me a task or just like a theme, and I loved playing around with the theme more than actually filming. And I
oh
loved,
my God,
yeah.
totally. The process is everything. And I think that's the
Hmm.
most important thing to learn as an artist is once you figure out that the meaning of why you do art is going to change as you get older, then
Hmm.
you have to think about long term. How do I create and design a career where I will remain happy and not stop?
Yeah,
So for me, I
exactly.
realized really early on that if I was going to be doing cruise ship shows, like 3 shows a day on a boat or the same show every single day, I would get burnt out and not continue. So I was like, I have to
Hmm.
design this where the process is fun. And it's like, my friend and I used to make films together, and we it was 24-hour access at Mass Art, and we no, it was not 24-hour access. It was we actually hid in the school overnight to finish a film,
That's
and
awesome.
without we could hear the security going around, and it's like what you're talking about. We were just laughing and just having so much fun. The process of making the film. We would also do weird things when we would show up, like at the film screenings. Like we would both make pina coladas, and this was in at Mass Art, like at a college. So people
Hmm.
back then were wondering where are they getting these like whipped cream. We'd make them in our apartment, like these really like crazy looking glasses with cherries and whipped cream and like umbrellas, and we would walk in at the film screenings with these like margarita glasses, and, but it was like it was the process like of doing that with him that was more fun than the film itself. And it's like
Yeah.
that's everything, because you know what that is that's life. The films
Hmm.
are just there, but your life is the time spent making them, and if you don't enjoy the process, then you're finished because you're going to hate your life. So that
Exactly.
you
Yes.
have to find out to how to be as a filmmaker, how to find a process that you enjoy. I
Mm.
mean, if you're just trying to please the audience and only make a film to get an award, once you get the award, your life is over because you're not going to have the energy to make another film. Once you get all the money and
Hmm.
stuff, you're just gonna collapse. You got to find something that drives you and a process that's enjoyable for sure.
Yeah,
I believe that.
I feel like that's just a, I mean, that's just a reaffirmation of the saying, like, happiness is peace of mind. It's not materialism. And I think that's a big concept. that I've recently been learning. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe it's not the $1 million that I say I want in my head, but it's more so the people you meet, the experiences, and just the peace of mind of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I try to go double-edged sword. So I'm like, okay, how do I market my heart? How do I
Mm.
have no expectation that my work will sell? So I'm going to have a gallery and put my work up. But on the other side of that, that double edge, I also want to have my paintings be the most expensive paintings that I've ever sold in the world. Because I think you have to aim as high as you can, but then not have the expectation. And then when I
Mm.
flip
Okay.
flop that, I mean, like, in other words, like I'm trying to sell a TV show and a
Yeah.
couple studios have looked at it and it's a completely commercial, it's something, a heartfelt idea, but now it's just the marketing. It's like, I want to sell this. I want this. I want the royalties. I want to try and get as much money as I can on it. But then I just created this poetry chapbook that is like, I'm mailing it out to people for free. I mean, people can buy it if they want, but
Yeah.
mostly I'm just mailing it out to free to friends. Um, and now I'm doing a donation for it, but there is I think that double-edged sword of aim high. I mean, try and make a career, try and
Yeah.
get the that side of it, but don't get lost in the, and I'm not telling you what to do with your life. This
Yeah.
is how
No worries.
this is how I do it.
Hmm.
But I think it's crazy. I mean, there is a game and an art to, I think Eugene Berger used to tell us, when you do a magic gig, you want to ask for a fee on the phone so high that they drop the phone. And one time I got offered a gig. I asked for a fee so high and there was awkward silence and I didn't get the gig. They actually dropped the phone. But it was just so fun to do because I'm already doing what I love. So to try and make the career out of it, I just think, like, don't cut yourself short. And for me, it's like, okay, maybe like Bruce Lee, if I aim beyond the target and try and punch through it, if my paintings don't sell for the highest paintings in the world, they're going to
Yeah.
sell for a lot more than they would have.
Yeah.
So I look at it like that. It's like right brain, left brain. I try and get in a duality of doing both and not just one.
Hmm.
So I think it would be very, very valuable to take a class on how to make a commercial and edit it and do it, something that's just sold for a corporate company, but then
Yeah.
make a personal film. How many people do both, but then, make a personal film, or vice versa?
Hmm.
Because what you'll find, I think, is that the commercial stuff will come into the artistic stuff, and you'll
Hmm.
find that things work on both sides, I believe.
Yeah. And it's like, I could see the intertwining. I mean, eventually, I mean, the goal is to intertwine both, right? Like the commercial aspect is what gets you the gigs, and then like your artistic representation can kind of clash and kind of create this beautiful thing at the end of the road.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you'll learn more of what you don't like you've done it before, like you made that film for that company and then learned from it. So the more
Mhm.
things you say yes to that you've never done and then decide not to do it or not after,
Mhm.
I feel like that kind of experience and what you'll learn from those situations. And there's a point, I mean, I'm getting near 40, I'm 37.
Mhm.
So there has to be a point in your life where you're sort of honing down and you're kind of like, well, how much experience do I need? How many children's birthday parties do I need to do? How
Mhm.
many corporate commercials do I need to make? Unless you're in love with that and you're like, I want to do that my whole life.
Yeah.
I think there's value in those things, because I think the danger is I went to art school and they tell a lot of those artists, like, oh, it's only for you, don't sell it, don't make money. And it's like, I think marketing is such an art, and you can market your heart. If you love something and make a film, that filmmaker should then know, if that's a work of art, how to have their film screenings and have their films for sale and how to have it
Yeah.
up on Vimeo to get revenue. That's
Mhm.
just crazy, because your heart should be heard too, even not for the money, but your film should be seen.
Yeah.
And those kind of ideas, I think, are not taught in art school, and often it's just that one creative side. but the marketing of the heart, that's what I think artists need to learn a little bit more in the colleges, from my experience at Mass Art. I mean, really good school. I loved what I got. Maybe they knew I would hit the business books after school. I mean, it's hard to teach that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, I agree 100%. I'm still currently going to art school, and I learned very quickly. I went at a later age. I kind of just after I think high school, I kind of just found myself, and then recently I went back to school because I finally have the patience. I guess that's what I'd like to say. But I learned very quickly that art school is just completely conceptual. I mean, that's just they're teaching the concept of art. It's not so much like you said, the marketing, the business aspect. And I
mhm,
kind of like that in a sense, but I would also love the actual marketing of it. I mean, that's just a skill that nobody really knows how to do.
mhm. And I'm still learning. I mean, I don't claim to be an expert. Like I said, I asked for a fee so high and they hung up.
Yeah.
Someone's going to listen to this. Who's this egotistical bastard that says he wants to sell his paintings for? But why not? Like, I
Not
remember
at all. Yeah.
being a kid, and I remember I was like telling my friend, I think I'm going to be, I don't know, a physical therapist or like like someone that draws in a courtroom. I forget. I think it was a physical therapist. And it was like, I was like doing something that was like an assistant level. And he just stared me in the eyes and he said, why not just do like I forget what the title for the top level job was. And he's like,
Hmm.
why not just aim for the top?
Yeah.
And that just like stuck with me since I was a kid. I mean, sure, maybe it will annoy people. Oh my God, look at this person, but you can't care what other people think. And if anybody judges you for trying to aim at your best potential,
Hmm.
and I think once you commit to that and take that honest step to like, all right, let's see what I can do, there's really something that comes with putting yourself out there. I mean, some of my drawings sold at a fee I didn't think they would sell for at a last year in a skateboard shop. It's like a really high-end skateboard shop in Boston,
Hmm.
and you know, I thought I had priced them too high, and I think like things will surprise you. I've also had shows where nobody bought anything.
Yeah.
I really believe in doing both things. You can't make the wrong direction. You know, you just go back and forth. Something completely personal. Now I'm going to try and, you know, draw a portrait for someone to get paid, and then
Hmm.
do something really personal, have a personal show and get out there. And then you'll learn which one you like more too. But if the commercial side starts working really well, I would caution to take steps back and really ask that you're happy, because I think a
Hmm.
lot of people I see are unhappy in the commercial work area.
Yeah, and I feel like it's once they get overwhelmed, it feels like commercial work overwhelms. It comes quickly and it comes out with like a lot. And you
Yeah.
don't, and it's the scary thing with commercial stuff is you don't, I mean, it's just that thought of I don't know if it's going to come back. So it's that kind of almost fear for most artists is not like, oh no, the work's not going to come back. I'm going to lose all the money.
Yeah.
And then they overwhelm themselves and burn themselves out. So
Of create. Oh, go ahead.
oh yeah, it's perfect that you say it's just like a perfect balance between the two.
Yeah. And I think people are afraid to go those directions. You know, they're sort of like, oh, I'm an artist, I can't study that. And the more that you do, and the more that you learn about even simple things. I mean, making a real connection with someone. You know, a lot of people, when they take a business card out, and so I mean, this is becoming extinct material here, you know, with
Hmm.
the world that we live in now. But when business cards were a thing before Corona,
Yeah.
um, when you give someone a business card, most people in America grab the business card that you give them and stick it right in their wallet, and they're like, "Here's mine." Now, if you go to Japan and you hand someone a business card, they have a whole etiquette on how they receive it. Like, your hands are almost in this receiving with thumbs up position, and you grab the other person's business card and you say something that you like about their card. You sort of acknowledge it, like, "Ooh, I like this drawing on your card," instead of just like immediately being like, "Here's mine." I mean, stuff like that, learning how to be more human. I think business actually teaches you how to not be an asshole. If you're really studying how to schmooze and connect, and really what the art is, it's really about how to be a better person and not just have it be about you. It's how to actually build real connections with people on a heart
Exactly.
level,
Hmm.
so that you're having relationship is really what I think it's about. And that really gets you to learn how to live better, I think, and learn who you want to do business with.
Yeah. No, 100%. I feel like you definitely have to. I mean, you'd be a terrible businessman if you didn't learn someone's culture and values, because I mean, you have to learn how to empathize with people, I feel, to conduct a business.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's hard for people to understand.
Like, what's this magician and talking about with Terrance? Like this podcast, they just went business 101 on us.
It's whatever. I love it. That's what I love about podcasts. It really doesn't matter. You're listening for two people talking. It's not so much. But I do want to wrap this up, though.
Yeah.
And I do want to ask, I always ask at the end of my podcast interviews. So I like giving advice out. Or I like asking my guests to give advice out, whether it's...
That's all I've done the whole time.
I know. I love it. That's why it's perfect. But do you have a specific, just some form of advice, whether something you're dealing with personally, something you think someone else would deal with, and just show it to the audience? Because I've been getting great feedback. People have been loving the fact that people have been giving advice. It's just really inspiring.
What's the name of this podcast? Isn't it How to Be Happy?
I want to feel better.
I want to feel better. All right. Well, let's talk about that. I mean, I think to feel better is an amazing intention to create a podcast around. And I think we can look at what, on a personal level, what makes us feel better. And there was a quote that my magic teacher said, which was, his name is Jeff McBride, mentioned him earlier, given lots of advice. Here's a little more, everybody.
Totally fine.
he said, if you feel, and this, I don't think it's his quote, but he heard this and passed this on. Mm-hmm. If you feel down, move around. If you feel great, meditate. And I thought about that, and I've been feeling, when I feel down, I've been doing these skateboard sessions where I move the carpet on my floor and I sit on my skateboard, because there's not much room. And also I'm 40. I mean, people think I'm a skateboard magician, but I am sort of a poser that creates the illusion that I can skateboard. All right. Hopefully no one that sees, but this is why I'm a skater. I mean, I can't stop. And, I'm sitting on my skateboard in my living room with my music blasting, and I have, the ocean projected on the TV. And I'm just rocking left and right with my feet as a pivot point. And it's like being on a swing as a child. And I feel so good to the music. And then I'm pushing myself from one end of the room, just sitting on the board, to the other. And then I'm even riding a little bit on my feet and twirling it. There's this trick that people do. In magic, they call it meditation, where you roll a coin between your hands. And I'm in this flow state of, if you look at a skateboarder, before they do a trick, they'll have the board top to end and they'll twirl it between their fingers. And I'll just do that over and over as a meditainment. So I'll move around and then kind of sit and get in these meditainment trances. And I find to just sit on the board and rock like that, I think a lot of skaters would give me shit and say like, man, that is so lame. But there's something so pure and great about finding a little act of playfulness and joy to bring into your life, that's so simple. And if you can find that, say you're an artist and you've been sad because you haven't been doing your paintings, just doodle, put a little music on and get the pencil moving, a little sketch, like for a little meditainment, just to move around a little bit, or go for a walk. If you're like, I can't work out, I'm getting out of shape, just try and go for a walk every day. Like those simple, even going for a walk, that ritual, that's what I would say. So that's what I'm going to leave people with. So the quote was, if you feel down, move around. And then after you feel really great, if you're like, oh my God, but I don't want to move around, I feel so great, just have a little tea and sit and listen to the birds.
That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. And then I did want to ask, do you have anything that you want to plug right now?
Well, I have a chapbook, and I have, you can contact me to get it. It's called Skate Spots. Okay. And it's a little poetry chapbook that gets mailed out. I'm working on something coming up in Vanish magazine about hypercubes. I think it's going to get published
Oh wow,
in
okay.
the next issue on how to visualize a hypercube, which is supposedly impossible. So I don't know if I completely effed this up, but people can look for that. I'm curious what scientists are going to think of this.
That's incredible. I can't wait for the response.
I think those are the two things that come to mind. I'm also working on a fan club for my character. It's going to be called the Muhachi Official Fan Club. His name is Muhachi. He's a little cartoon character. And I've been buying and getting buttons and all kinds of merch made up, spending lots of money for something that no one is probably going to join.
And I'll join. You got me.
and it's like a monthly club where every month you'll get an envelope. So it's a year subscription. And there's a little zine newsletter, and you'll get little buttons or magnets and some of my artwork. I'm actually going to do drawings, which I've already sold for $100, and those little sketches and drawings are going to be in the envelopes for free. So I mean, not for free, but for the subscription fee. Yeah. So I'm going to be giving tons of art away. So it's a really good way to, if people like my art, for me to connect with the people that really want to support me and kind of give back. And I love getting stuff in the mail. So I wanted to make something it's kind of inspired off of the Gumby fan club, like where if I was a fan of this cartoon character, this is what I would want to get. So I'm trying to I love getting stuff in the mail and that magic of getting a letter. So it's like a kind of a swag club, but it's from the heart. It's from the heart, man.
Oh, no worries. And I just want to thank you so much for doing this. I mean, I can't even commend you enough.
Thank you so much for having me on, Terrance. It was a pleasure to have some coffee and connect. And I can really sense your passion for art and film. And I'd love to learn more. I'd love to see the film. Send me the film and I'll check it out.
Oh, yes, 100%. I can't wait to send it to you. You're going to laugh.
And I'll send you the chapbooks for free. If you DM me your address, and I'll send you a couple of the chapbooks, and I am doing a donation, so I'll put my own money into the donation. That's magic, an effect without a cause. If you just give from the heart like that, that's also what I believe magic is. It's like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm just going to do it.
Okay, perfect. No, I enjoyed this conversation. This was great. I mean, you answered all my questions, which is incredible. That's all.
All right.
But all right.
Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you so much. That is the end of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have a good weekend, or whatever day you're listening to this. Maybe you have work or something. Maybe your mom's yelling at you. Whatever the case, I hope you feel better.